Hi guys, I'm Chormi, welcome back on my channel. Today we show you how to make the beat for Too Many Nights by MetroBoomin, Future and Toliver. This beat is produced by Honorable C-Note, MetroBoomin and Unloritor. So let's start with breakdown. First thing, we got the intro. I used this synth string from Analog Lab, Comforting Pad. It's like the classic vintage sounding so square PMW modulation string. So I think they played this string from a Prophet or a classic Juno. This preset is really similar, it sounds like this. And then for the second layer, I recreated a simple patch in Serum. I used a classic sine wave with a little bit of unison to get a larger sound, a little bit of filter on the highs, a noise used as a transient, and then pitch modulation using the LFO set as an envelope. We have this really fast modulation on the pitch going from high to normal to achieve this classic sharp attack on the pluck. The chords that they're using for the intro are E minor at 9 and G major. They are in a different key from the one they used for the full beat, so this intro is in E minor and then the full beat is in G minor. I think they're using these two chords because they are the first and the third chord of the minor scale, and these two chords share two notes, so it's really easy to move from one chord to another, and this creates this effect of moving tension that they're using for the intro. Another important detail is this suspended 2 note that is used on the E minor chord, making it an add 9 minor chord. It helps to create tension at the start. Then for the second chord, I think they are using like an inversion of the E minor chord, so they are moving this root note up. We have the G and B, the root note and the third of the third chord of the scale, but they are not adding the fifth of the chord. So we have this feeling of change, but not really change in the chord. It creates a lot of tension for me. As you can see, they had the fifth of the third chord just at the end of the progression. So they are preserving tension for 7 bars, and then on the 8th bar, they are releasing this tension using this note here. Then we have the main melody. I used a preset from Omnisphere, Childish Noise Bell, but you can recreate this sound in every synth, so you don't really need Omnisphere because it's just a sine wave played on 2 octaves. This is how it sounds, and without the other octave, it's just a sine wave. This is the melody that is playing with this sound. It's just arpeggiating the tonic chord of the scale, so G minor, using a suspended 2 to create that dark feeling in the melody, and also the suspended 4 on the last bar to create a variation. So we have the 5th at the start, then we have the root note, and then we have the 3rd and the suspended 2. Then we have a pad sound. I also used the Omnisphere with this preset, Shooting Signs. It's just a sine wave with a little bit of filter. This is a background synth, just filling the frequencies in the lower octave. With this sound is playing the first chord of the scale, so G minor, and then the 4th chord of the scale, C minor. This is a really common progression in trap music because it creates this feeling of exoticness, darkness and tension all together, so it's really used. I think the main reason why these chords make us feel this way is the relationship between the 5th of the first chord and the 3rd of the 4th chord. Then we have some Rhodes. I used Omnisphere with this preset and is playing the same chords. With this layer is trying to add some rhythm to the main melody because, as you can see, it's shifting the start of the chords and is using these offbeats to create more rhythm. Then we have a piano. I used Omnisphere with the classic K-scape piano, and is always playing the same chord, so this is just a layer to create a variation and to add more energy. I almost forgot that on the 8th bar is also playing this 5th chord of the scale. This last chord, the 5th chord, it's a really good transition chord to get back to the tonic. This is how it sounds when we have all the layers playing together. Then we have this gliding synth for the second part. I use this preset, the lead veer saw. It's just a saw wave with a little bit of cutoff and this mono legato portamento slide effect. Analyzing the music theory behind this melody, we can see that it's using the fifth of the first chord of the scale. Then we have the use of the augmented fifth. As you can see, this augmented fifth is just the third of the fourth chord of the scale. So it's the relationship we were talking about before between the fifth of the first chord and the third of the fourth chord. And then he's adding this F that is a 7 to the first chord. For the second chord, he's playing the third and the suspended 4. On the second part, he's adding this suspended 4 to the first chord. He's modifying the lower note from a D to a C, and then for the rest is just the same as the first part of the melody. Then we have the last sound. This was the most complicated to recreate. It's like a lead or a synth with a band pass or high pass filter moving on the highs. On Omnisphere, I use this preset, Nemo Sweep. I disabled a lot of the FX on the FX page, and I disabled the filter too on the sounds. Then on Serum, I recreated this patch using just 2 saw waves, and then on Repro, I used this preset. For the FX, I applied some reverb, some saturation, but the most important effect is this EQ acting like a band pass filter, moving from the highs to the mids. The second layer that you can hear on this pattern is just a classic saw square lead that I recreated with Serum. I used a lot of voices and a little bit of detune to achieve this larger sound on the lead, and then we have some effects, so flanger, chorus, reverb, distortion, and then we have this filter moving from the highs to the mids. And I also applied this mono legato portamento, and these are the notes that is playing. In the background, I had these layers that I chopped from the first Omnisphere sound. Then we have the drums, a classic clap on the third beat. I chopped this one from the original track. For the clap, we have this reverb on the second and fourth bar. Then we have a classic 2-step for the hi-hat. I had to delete some notes on the main pattern because I'm using these other hi-hats and the clap that I chopped from the original production. So layering all these hi-hats together was creating the classic phasing effect, and I wanted to avoid that. These are the 2 hi-hat samples that I chopped from the original production. A really important detail on these hi-hats is this velocity modulation that is using to create this realistic feeling. Then we have a hobonet on the second beat of the second bar, this cowbell roll, and then we have the kick with this classic trap pattern. For the 808, I use this sample. It's like a spins with a lot of distortion that creates this sawy sound. And it's just playing the root notes of the chords that we have seen before. And the last sample for the drums is this ride with a classic 8-step pattern that adds some energy on the second part. And this is the final result. Is adding a filter on the first synth when the other one comes in. Then when I was switch for the bass, I used Serum to create a similar patch. I mainly used saw waves and this sine square wave, I think. For the effects, we have a lot of distortion and a little bit of flanger. And then we have the filter. I applied this envelope modulation and a lot of resonance. This is an essential detail for this bass to achieve this pluckier sound on the attack. And I also used this transient from this bass that I made. So this is the bass sound without any external effects. And then this is the bass with the effects. I mainly used some saturation from Thermal and Saturn, and then some EQ and distortion, and is always playing the same root notes. Second part is just a copy and paste of the first one, and then we have this variation at the end. And we also have a variation for the outro. They use this synth bass that I recreated in Serum. I use these 3 sound waves from Serum, distortion, hyperdimension to give this larger and detuned feeling to the bass, and a little bit of phaser to create these moving effects on the frequencies, chorus, reverb, a lot of EQ on the mid, highs, and then we have a little bit of EQ and saturation. And that's all for this remake. I hope you liked this video. I will leave all my link in the description for BeatStars and Patreon if you want to support me. See you in the next video. Bye.